Good morning. This is Glenn Greenwich and Tom Hope, and we're going to be talking about the New York City Mayoral Candidate for 2021. So we had an interesting debate. Was that last Thursday night, and all of the candidates. I think that was that the first one with all 8 candidates.
Right, right.
So
Um,
it was a little lengthy, but so what did you notice, Tom?
well, and once again, this is in connection with community and social change. So how does the position of the different candidates affect the community? Very briefly, let me go over a couple of highlights from each. Diane Morales has an agenda of trying to reshape communities by breaking down the $6 billion budget for the police department, maybe cutting it in half and funneling a lot of that into a new organization called Community Responders Department. Her idea is to work with the City Housing Authority to provide guaranteed income to the poor, desegregating schools. All of this is meant to aid the community. And in theory, this would be a massive attack on the roots of crime. That's Diane Morales. Maya Wiley, she is a major person involved with Black Lives Matter. Let's see, she's an activist, as she served as a counsel for de Blasio. She's interested in creating new jobs, building the city's infrastructure, and also helping communities of color. Now, Catherine Garcia, her emphasis is on climate change, and she has some interesting ideas about a New York New Deal, dealing with aspects of the Green New Deal that AOC has talked about. Eric Adams, I think, is a problem. Eric Adams said in dealing with crime, this was during the debate, his comment to Diane Morales about the roots of crime, his comment was, "You don't know anything about policing." Something to that effect.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't think if you want to be a leader of a city, you should use that type of tone. Don't you want to include people to get their input and solve a problem rather than be an aggressive authoritarian? Eric Adams is a problem in the area of his sensitivity. He was once quoted as telling people moving to New York that they should go back to Iowa or go back to Ohio. I don't quite like the idea that he wants to dismiss his security detachment because he's going to carry a gun.
Yeah.
What does that say for dealing with the strength of police force as opposed to negotiation or diffusing? Okay, so let's see. We have Sean Donovan, while he worked with the Obama administration, I wonder about his tie-in to the development industry. I have the same concerns with Andrew Yang. I worry about Ray McGuire he was the chairman of Citigroup for 15 years. what does it say when we're talking about heavy finances? It talks about a corporate mentality. How is that going to help the community? Let's see.
Garcia.
Well, Garcia is the person who deals with a focus on the climate change.
Yeah.
And let's see. Well, Andrew Yang, while he has some interesting ideas about helping every person have a guaranteed income, we have to wonder about whether he'll be too soft on corporate New York or the real estate industry, police reform. Scott Stringer, actually, despite the problems, this is a real mix, because you worry about Scott Stringer because of the sexual harassment. However, he is a progressive in some other areas, such as dealing with seeing the comprehensive way of dealing with the community and taking the right approach with police. Well, that was a little bit more than I had expected as a wrap up, but your thoughts?
Well, I kind of go back in the you talk about Scott Stringer, and he actually had some interesting conversations prior to his candidacy, but in preparing for his candidacy around East New York, and the fact that the affordable housing wasn't affordable to East New Yorkers because of the way the federal government compiles the AMI. He's interested in that he's got he knows the city infrastructure as a controller, but he wasn't as strong as I would have thought he could have been in some of the areas. Quite frankly, I thought a lot of the candidates, when they talked about homelessness, didn't really have a great answer. Some of them talked about supportive housing. Some of them talked about actually creating truly affordable housing. I think Scott Stringer was one of them. Andrew Yang was another one, and Ray McGuire also talked a little bit about some plans. Sean Donovan, I think his whole pitch was around housing. Everything, when he talked about education, when he talked about some of the other ills of the city, everything centered around housing. And so I'm not sure how diversified he is in terms of his looking. Understanding, obviously the housing is an important aspect of it. But I actually thought that McGuire, Yang, and the other young lady that I thought, Maya Wiley. Maya Wiley, I didn't know too much about her, but out of this debate, I kind of felt that she is now a much stronger candidate than I thought in terms. So she was very strong in addressing education, homelessness. Like I said, they were kind of a mixed bag.
Wasn't it either her or wasn't it Meyer or Diane Morales who made the comment about the vacant buildings, that we should turn them into some type of program where we would be able to give the homeless person some type of lodging?
Yeah. Yes, I'm not certain, but it was certainly one of the two of them. Yes.
Now that would be a very different approach than we normally hear.
Right, because none of the others really offered anything really out of the ordinary. I thought it was interesting that Maya Wiley went after Eric Adams in the whole policing, and his whole take on it, which, stop and frisk is one of the conversations that she challenged him on, and I thought that was interesting.
Well, she happens to be an attorney and a professor, so she's been dealing with these issues for a while.
Yeah, so and she was running the review board that reviews the police incidents and whatnot, and I know that she's working with the civil liberties around that, and seems to know quite a bit about the rights and possibly some ways of attacking it. So
I was disappointed that when asked the question about getting at crime, most talked about increasing police force and the presence, or restructuring them so that they'd be better trained. But I think only Maya and Diane Morales, they were the only ones talking about getting at the roots of crime rather than looking at the aftermath, the results.
yeah, and yeah, that's interesting. You're right, because they talked about the economic and the educational piece built into that as part of the whole solution. I think Ray McGuire also mentioned in his plan that was more in line with small businesses, not necessarily with crime per se, but he's got a constructive plan around the economics and educational components of it.
Now, it's interesting that Sean Donovan talks about an equity bond for all New York City children, and that this would help low-income families. Now, these approaches of vouchers or bonds seem to miss the real problem. We need total restructuring where we have more support in the community to avoid problems of economics. Having a $2,000 bond is like just the top of the iceberg. We need a comprehensive approach.
Well, when I listened, I wasn't, well, let me say this first. I was a little surprised to know Eric Adams and Andrew Yang were actually, Yang was leading and Adams was ranked second in terms of leading this race. Wasn't that impressed with their debate capability. I believe, or I suspect, that the leadership in the race had to do with name recognition more so than anything else.
Of course, right.
But when I look at it, for me, the strong candidates that emerged from it was Ray McGuire and Maya Wiley. Although I did like Ms. Garcia, the former sanitation commissioner. She had some interesting ideas. So it's going to be interesting. They're talking about another 2 debates, I guess.
Right.
So who in your estimation was the star of the debate? Who would you say?
I was looking more at content than a contest, so I wasn't looking at that. I think it's true that Maya probably, from the progressive point of view, I think Maya probably spoke more than Morales. It would have been nice if Morales had contributed more throughout the debate. I liked the things she said. I thought she was more comprehensive than Maya, but on the other hand, the big item that stood out to me was a type of arrogance on the part of Eric Adams.
Well, I hate to say it, but it's kind of consistent with that whole police mentality, I guess. Maybe I'm not sure, but it was, yeah, he did come across, uh, you know, very, very strong. I'll leave it there. Strong.
Well, any closing thoughts?
Well, it's going to be
Who,
interesting.
who do you think won the debate?
Well, I think in terms of, I said it earlier, I think that Maya Wiley propelled herself up there in the rankings. And I think, personally, I'd be more willing to listen to what you've got to say now going forward and probably listen a little closer. Um, I was always curious about Ray McGuire. Um, he, again, I'm not so excited. I thought when Bloomberg came in that he was going to set the place afire and as a businessman and so forth. And I thought, so Ray McGuire is kind of another business person coming from the big financing. So I'm not sure. I don't give him the credibility that I thought Bloomberg had when Bloomberg first emerged. So I'm not sure if what he can provide. But I'm listening. It's at this point in time, I think it's still anybody's race. I don't think that I don't think the two front runners did as well as they would have liked to, and so now the playing field is leveling out. And so I think the next couple of debates will really set the tone in terms of who is the right leadership for New York City going forward. Because we've got some challenges. We've got the crime, we've got the homelessness, we've got the small businesses. Those are just three of the probably propelling issues that would hold us back.
Well, one of the fascinating points for me, I think, is this idea by Morales of a community responder organization. This means if this is in place, when we have a mental health issue, someone even holding a gun or a knife, maybe we don't have the door broken down by a SWAT team. Maybe instead we have a clinical psychologist who diffuses the situation, is able to get the knife or gun away from the person, has knowledge about the family, and maybe touches a key button in the person holding the knife or gun so that they stop. This responder team sounds, and hopefully it will be a focus on diffusing. We have had too many examples of the SWAT team approach, breaking a door down. Oh, it's the wrong apartment. Right. Or someone calls for help and suddenly they're injured or dead. We have to have some organization like this. And I think that's an interesting point that Morales put in play.
Yeah, it is. And we certainly need that because as you said, when you look back at some of the incidents, we've had several here in New York. There's been the woman that had the knife who was actually defending herself that got shot, and the countless people who, the mother who called in on her son that he was having an episode, he had a knife, and of course got, so there are a lot of those situations where if we had the right mentality going into it in terms of diffusing instead of eliminating, lives would have been saved. So and I gotta say that being a police officer is a tough job. You're required to make snap decisions. And if you don't have the whole choices in front of you, you know, if your go-to is brute force, then that doesn't work for the public either. So you gotta, something's got to give.
Well, the other point here is that whatever New York does actually could be a message for the rest of the country.
Actually, the rest of the world, because the New York City police force, people come in from foreign countries to actually look to see what we're doing as a police force. So you're right. Whatever we do here is going to make a difference in this nation and worldwide. So we'll keep our eye on that going forward.
Well, if you like what you've seen, heard, get in touch with us. Our Facebook page is Community and Social Change. Glenn,
Thank you.
thank you.